Hello and welcome back to Under the Moons. Last year we took a deep dive into the mind of Neil Buchanan. Some say this was a step too far, others began quoting Pandora's box in their comments. Yet here we are once again, noshing on the forbidden fruit that is the living enigma, Neil Buchanan. And more so his show, It's a Mystery. Yes, this late 90s TV show poses several mysteries to the viewer, some straight from the captivating lips of the British public.
It was about 5 o'clock in the evening and my children were playing in the back garden and I was peeling potatoes ready for our evening meal.
Each show comprises of a main mystery, complete with reenactments of varying immersion. In-studio pieces that stretch the definition of a mystery.
It's a mystery whether this water could have trickled down a dinosaur's back.
And like you saw with Red Rooster, a personal mystery from the public. Oh, and in case you're wondering, her and her children saw a Lancaster bomber flying overhead and thought,
That night I got the feeling that I was seeing something that had happened before. I can only say that I really think it was a phantom Lancaster bomber.
1990s Battle of Britain flyover. Oh look, a Lancaster bomber. They still fly one or two of these around to this day. But thankfully Neil Buchanan was there to slap some sense into these potato-powered people.
Well, believe it or not, planes are not the only phantom objects to be seen. Over the American state of Alaska, there was a ghostly sighting in the sky of the complete city of Bristol.
Right, well, now you know why I'm revisiting this show. Now, last year we hyper-focused on the story of the Belness faces and how the show's reenactment made me scared of miscellaneous stains on the kitchen floor. But we took a further look into the actual case itself, which led on to some surprising twists. And this year, well, personally I think there's a few more stories that might need a closer inspection. But don't click off too soon, as coming up, we'll be looking at a mystery that took place a year after the show was taken off air. One that won't be so easily explained. In 1996, it was time to shift things up a bit. The production company, the Media Merchants, had been producing Art Attack since 1990, along with a few other productions of varying levels of nostalgia. But it was time to put the art supplies down, if only for a minute. For now, the Merchants had a need to scratch an itch of the macabre. This show, led by Neil Buchanan, and a rolling cast of familiar faces, would lead viewers through spooky stories, some explainable, some not so much, and some that, yes, as you saw, were very much explainable, yet, well, who doesn't like a little bit of razzle-dazzle?
Phantom horses?
Beyond the veil of mysteries, the show also leaned into rather mundane subjects to then spin them into a mystery, like the time they spent 3 minutes 47 seconds building up a haunting vibe of a woods and its dark, mysterious secret.
I'm somewhere else in the forest and I've got another clue for you. This old tree stump is completely hollowed out and there's a small opening just at the front. So, who or what might have lived here?
This music is terrifying. What demented crimes have happened here? What sins have been committed on these grounds?
This is the village where Winnie the Pooh lived.
Now, we do have to remind ourselves that, yes, this was a children's show, and we could probably theorise that some balancing had to be done to fit a quota of education. Some in-studio pieces could literally be viewed on that big telly wheeled into your classroom, sandwiched between Cat's Eyes and El Nombre.
Oh, little Juan, why do you cry?
I am trying to learn to count, but I cannot even draw the number 1.
It is easy to draw the number 1, little Juan. All you have to do is this.
It almost felt like at times It's a Mystery was trying to compete with CITV's educational show, How To. Although if the competition was which show would age better, It's a Mystery might have this one.
How?
Funny enough, some information came to light after a conversation I had with Nic Ayling, the then researcher, program associate, and associate producer, and a part-time extra of It's a Mystery, who told me the show was actually formed out of the production company losing the rights to How To. So It's a Mystery was, from its origin, a spiritual successor to How To, except it could get a little broader with its education. Like How To could never inform us about the wonderful world of eugenics.
Have a look at this chappie here.
Experts say that a person with a turned-up nose,
And there it goes.
this one, may be happy to learn and grasp new ideas, but a person who had a turned-down nose will be less likely to have a go at new things.
Okay.
Or my favourite segment, the mystery of why we produce tears, along with a totally not uncomfortable demonstration of how to cry.
So how do you do it?
Well, I think of a sad memory, and hopefully, if it's strong enough, it'll bring back the emotion and I'll be able to cry.
So could you do it for us now?
Okay?
Thanks, Ben.
It's okay.
The show would still cover some classic mysteries, like the legend of the Green Children of Woolpit. Or the then, not so well known as it is now, TV hijacking in the 70s of an alien messenger.
For many years now,
I was also quite surprised to see the theory of the Sphinx and pyramids being far older than the Egyptians who claim to have built them represented on the show.
So that would mean that the Sphinx could have been built much earlier. Perhaps a date of 10,500 BC is more realistic.
And of course, we can't forget the retelling of the Belmez faces.
I even spotted Mr. Meeker smashing up the floor this week. All sorts of strange goings on. Faces on the floor, I ask you.
But my personal favourites were these, well, personal stories from locals who were so sure they witnessed something incredible that the most logical explanation seemed ridiculous to them.
My name is Eddie Debman. I live in Sherborne in Dorset. I have what I believe is firm evidence of a panther living in this country. I suddenly saw this black cat. I could even see the hairs on the back of the animal as it moved slowly along. Suddenly it stopped and I thought looked at me. Believe me, I was ready to run. Some people in the Priory thought that it might have been a large, fat, domestic cat, but I've seen cats before. Believe me, it was no cat, it was a panther.
But what truly can't be beat was going back to the studio to lay out all the evidence to solve this mystery.
Now, the Priory believe that what Eddie filmed was their big fat pet cat, Sylvie. We wanted to talk to an expert. What do you think?
I think it's just a big black domestic cat.
But to then still slap a mystery unsolved on the screen!
We went out and measured the edge of this wooden cold frame, and we found it to be about 40 centimetres high, which is about this high. We measured Sylvie and found her to be about 30 centimetres tall. That's quite a bit smaller.
It appeared to be about that high, whereas an ordinary domestic cat would be something like that. Believe me.
It was an interesting trait of the show, and one that might have been to avoid hurting the source of the story's feelings. Although, the way some of them were filmed, it looked like they were keeping them against their will. But to say they would cherry-pick information just to keep a mystery would be an unfair statement. The show would constantly play out reenactments that had fun explanations.
What's that? The two men stood their ground and waited for it to approach them. Well, as the bizarre blob got nearer, they realised that the mysterious white thing was nothing more than a patch of white hair on the forehead of a horse that lived in the field.
However, cherry-picking is one thing, but what about false information? Let's talk about the story of the cursed coffin, which in itself, that title is a complete lie as well.
It's a mystery what untold disaster a sinister box could bring to anyone who came into contact with it.
Yes, the show dives into the tale of the unlucky mummy that was, overall, the cause of death for 20 British people. When 4 English gentlemen draw sticks for an authentic casket, they soon all experience tragedies, from disappearances, getting shot, loss of fortune and health. But this casket's presumed reign of terror didn't stop as it found its way to the British Museum. Night guards would hear cries and banging coming from the casket. even resulting in the death of more guards. The fear of this casket caused the museum staff to resign. Spooky stuff and typical of Egyptian relics, always cursing British people. What have we done to deserve? But the big twist of the tale? It sunk the Titanic!
The coffin of the priestess of Amun-Ra may well have accompanied 1,500 passengers to its final resting place, and the name of the ship it was travelling on was the Titanic.
Oh my goodness! Could this casket be the reason why the ship sank, and not Captain Birdseye's hubris? Well, if you make your way to the British Museum, you will see that it didn't sink with the Titanic. It's just been behind a pane of glass this whole time. Explain yourself, Neil. How could you do this to us? What else have you lied about? Did you pay that girl to lie about how electrical devices break around her?
I put the bread in the toaster and turned it on, but to my surprise, the toaster went funny and stopped working.
Well, let's take a step back here and see if we ourselves can debunk this mystery of It's a Mystery. Now, for many of us, the end of the 90s doesn't feel that long ago. I mean, it definitely looks long ago. Why does Gail Porter have 2 collars? The fashion of this show is a whole other mystery which we just don't have time for today.
Fashion is so weird.
I think the biggest difference between the tail end of the 90s and what we deem as modern day is the advancement of the internet.
On your mark, get set. We're riding on the internet.
How did I know about the casket's actual whereabouts? Google. Within a few seconds, I had the answer. How about knowing the location of the Lancaster bomber? YouTube. The luxury of access to this much information is impossible to imagine back in 1996, and still is to many people around the world. If you want to create a show diving into spooky, mysterious stories, books were your ally. Yes, you know the kind. Man, Myth and Magic magazine. The big book of UFOs. And in the case of It's a Mystery, one source was Marks & Spencer's encyclopedia of questions and answers. And beyond that, adverts were placed into local papers asking for stories, and some of those stories came from connections through the production team. As I was talking to Nick, it became clear just how much of a all-hands-on-deck experience creating It's a Mystery was. A team with 6+ years creating an art show, now jumping over to writing and directing recreations and on-location shoots with small budgets and against the clock. In fact, a large part of my enjoyment rewatching the show has been realizing just how many local areas to me were the filming locations of the majority of It's a Mystery's recreations. The team, made up of a group of people that came together from past jobs unrelated to their current roles, no one was educated on how to produce this kind of show. That kind of higher education didn't exist yet.
You get a bit close, aren't you?
What I love about the show and what gives it its charm is, and I mean this in the most beautiful way, its limitations in production and access to information. The appeal and characters of the show isn't something that could be recreated today. Its sets, cast of theatre actors, even the graphics. The ease of access to information would just take the fun out of the show if it were to return today. I mean, part of the fun of this video is being able to do this, and as much as I tease and poke fun of the show, it really is an amazing time capsule of the era, and a clear labour of love from its team. But even as it was in production, it seemed like it wasn't long for this earth. With more regulations, stories like the Belmez Faces wouldn't be possible due to complaints brought in by parents. The rights to the show moved over to another company, which looked at its new collection of IP as numbers more than anything else, which brought in changes to the show. It's a Mystery lasted for 5 seasons between 1996 and 2001. And for its last season, the show was given a facelift that meant ditching the show's studio and the longer running time. A drop in enthusiasm saw Neil leave the production. The title got the Facebook treatment and went on to be called just Mystery. The education portions no longer existed, and instead the larger mysteries and personal stories were all that were left. Even those recreations had a bit more stretching in its storytelling to make it seem more mysterious. In defense of the Titanic connection of the unlucky mummy story, even the wording of that portion made sure to keep its legitimacy vague.
The coffin of the priestess of Amun-Ra may well have accompanied 1,500 passengers to its final resting place.
Overall, it's a shame we didn't get more of the original It's a Mystery, as its popularity only grew with each season. But what we have now is a great reminder of what children's TV was to a lot of us growing up, and how much fun they all seem to have creating the show.
Oh, hang on. Oh. Looks like Tristan's hurt himself again. Are you all right there?
Oh, Tristan, that's disgusting.
That's horrible.
Listen, don't worry.
However, if the show had continued, this next mystery would have well and truly made it onto screens. One with such violent twists and turns that it would have made those terrified parents start writing in complaints all over again. Let me tell you of the A3 ghost car. It was a cold December afternoon, Christmas just a few weekends away. Wednesday shoppers drove back on the A3 with presents filling their boots. At the local police station, officers had started to celebrate the festivities with their Christmas party. But by the time the day was out, Christmas would be the last thing on anyone's mind. As drivers funneled down into their lane to take the exit off at Burpham, a red car suddenly jolted from the procession and skipped off into a ditch along the road, headlights ablaze, alarming all those that had once been behind this car. At the Suffolk police station, the Bing Crosby CD was violently stopped. But unrelated to this, the festivities were put on hold as the switchboard was lit up, with several calls reporting the crash. The slip road was closed to allow officers to investigate the scene. Yet on further inspection, no evidence of a car that had driven off the road could be found. No tyre marks, no damaged vegetation. So what had happened? Had the other drivers all hallucinated the same thing? This seemed to be the growing conclusion to the officers at the scene, but the mood took a little turn when they looked a little further into the overgrowth. Under the thick layer of evasive weeds and sharp brambles, police found the remains of a rusty maroon Vauxhall Astra in the ditch, hidden away from passing cars. And on further inspection, a human skeleton was found a metre from the car that seemed to have been attempting to crawl up the bank. Who had this skeleton once been? What had those other cars seen? Well, the full story wasn't revealed until the police were able to answer one of these questions. The body had been identified as a 21-year-old man who'd been reported missing 5 months ago. The last time anyone had seen this man alive was leaving in his maroon Vauxhall Astra after visiting friends in London, 25 miles away from the crash. The reason as to why he was driving along the A3 was a mystery to his friends and family. Mobile records revealed that the man tried to contact his brother based on a 1-second outgoing call made 1 hour after he'd seen his friends. But whether or not this call was made before or after the crash is unknown. So what did motorists see that cold December day? Was it a figment of the imagination that just so happened to lead on to the police discovering the crash? Or was it a phantom apparition of a fatal car crash retold so that his family and friends could know of his untimely death? What do you think? I know what I think. Mystery unsolved. Well, thank you all for watching. I've had a fantastic time diving into It's a Mystery once more, and a big thank you to Nic Ayling for taking his time to talk about the show. You really helped form this video and gave me a much larger love for this series. If you'd like to watch It's a Mystery for yourself, check out the YouTube channel The Meekers, where you can find a giant playlist of all the surviving episodes in beautiful VHS quality. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe because you'll not want to miss what's coming up next. But until then, I'll see you next time under the moons. Hopefully, a little less spooky. See you later.